Hi, friends. Welcome to today's Let's Get Honest and Talk with Sablin. We are going to talk about a really hard topic for me, and I will explain in a little bit why it's been so hard to shoot this video. Um, we're going to dive in the difference between self-love and selfishness in 3 ways to tell the difference. If you're new to this channel, my name is Sablin. I am the owner of RelativeGrowth.com, the creator of the Happiness Growth Journal, and it is my mission to help those out there live happier, more fulfilling lives by aligning your mind, your body, your soul, and your goals to be able to stop dreaming and start living. And every single week we release videos like this one, as well as blog articles and a weekly Hello Happiness newsletter. So you have the information at your fingertips for free if you're interested in useful tips and tools as you guide yourself through your own self-awareness journey. If you want a little bit more help and a little bit more of a guide, our Happiness Growth Journals are created based off of holistical psychology and popular self-help books to do just that. So, without further ado, let's dive into our video for today of selfish or self-love, 3 ways to tell the difference. And let me explain to you why this is such a hard conversation for me to have right now. I've talked a lot about toxic relationships on this channel, how to deal with them, how to recognize them, how to distance yourself from them. And I am sure that you can guess that I write about what I know and what I'm going through. And so when I came to writing about the topic about self-love or selfishness, it was really hard because I have a lot of people in my life who have used self-love as a reason why to not be as involved in my life, and has caused me a great deal of pain and confusion, and even has really kind of done a turn on my self-esteem. And I wanted to be very careful because I know that there's people out there who give of themselves so much that their self-love tank is empty. And I also know that there's people on the other side of it who take so much for themselves that they're out of balance. And so I have tried to film this video a few different times, and one was a technical issue, another one I just kind of came up dry and I didn't know how I wanted to present the topic. And so I've been sitting on it for about 2 weeks really thinking about it, and I feel as if I finally found a way to help not only give you the way of telling what self-love is versus selfishness, but from my perspective, why I feel certain acts are selfish. And so what I really came into, and I just want to share my story, my perspective. Take it or leave it. Like, if you're like, don't want to hear your story, fast forward. This will only take about a minute, maybe 2. And then I'll get into the tips and the research of it. But for my story, what I truly found was there is a balance in life. And self-love is in the middle. Selfishness is on one side. And I don't know if you would want to call it selflessness. I think it very much can be looked at as when you give to others your full self, but you give so much that you're empty. And so whenever you are out of balance, problems start to arise. And let me explain a little bit more about that. I very much like to say that we have these love tanks. And this journey started 3-4 years ago because I was empty. I had no clue. I thought it was a problem with happiness. I thought I needed more happiness in my life. But what it really came down to is I needed to fill up my self-love tank. I needed to have healthy boundaries, to get rid of the toxic relationships and replace them with good, healthy relationships. I had to learn what self-care looked like. And I also had to heal my wounds. And that all started on my happiness journey. And I was often categorized as being a selfless person. I gave of myself to others because I love to take care of people. I really truly do. And it does bring me joy, and it really makes me happy to see other people happy. However, if there's no balance of that, if there's no healthy boundaries, if there's no reciprocation, that's where damaging to your soul can come into it. Same thing goes on the flip side, though, with being selfish. Is I had relationships around me where it was very much one-sided, where they would only give to me when it was convenient for them. If I asked for help, there was tons of excuses of why it was just not possible. Where it was meant, I don't ever think that there was not the love there. It just wasn't given on terms that was kind and respectful. It was a lot of thinking about their own wants and their own needs before those of anyone else's, at the detriment of me saying, hey, this is really hurting me. This is really confusing to me. Why? And it was met with like, sorry, self-love, need to take care of myself. And so I think I went to the extreme of never wanting to set those healthy boundaries because I didn't want to hurt anyone else's feelings. And what I realized is that there's no right or wrong. We all have moments of times where we're selfish because we need to be. But there's also important to have times where we're selfless. And so it's finding those balances. All right. I said 2 minutes, been 2 minutes, loved it. Let's dive in on how to really determine the difference between self-love and selfishness. And in my research and development, I found this wonderful description that I don't think it could have been said any better. And I will actually link the below to the specific blog post that I found on her site. It's from a blog called Love is Stronger. And I have notes over here, and I'm going to read my notes so I don't mess it up. And she defines self-love that honors and nurtures the light within us, our wise self. And it heals that which is diseased and dark within us, our wounded self. And so I want to stop and digest that. Is within us, we all have traumas. It doesn't matter how we have all at some point in time have come through a life to where we have traumas. Being birthed is an earlyhood, like childhood trauma. Like we all have things that we have to address, identify, work through, and heal into these beautiful scars. And self-love is we love the person that's within us, and yet we are also going to address the things that's bringing us fear, anxiety, and anger. And we're going to take the time to heal those fears, anxiety, and anger so it can be moved into a more loving and compassionate way of seeing the world around us. Selfishness, on the other hand, disregards our light and the light of others. In doing so, it makes our wounded self the center of the world. It dwells in the disease of the wounded self and encourages it to fester. And I'm going to come back to this wounded self because so often we don't realize where our wounds lay. And my wounds opened up when I had children, and when I had not only my first child, but my second child. And I was able to address it because within one of my parenting books, they said, does your child do something? And do you automatically go to the worst case scenario? Like I had 2 boys, let's say they're fighting. I picture them 30 years down the line. They were 3 and 6 at the time. So 30 years down the line, not talking to each other, spending Thanksgivings at the other end of the world. That was a trigger for me. My fear was that I was not going to create a loving and compassionate relationship between the boys. And when I got fearful, I got angry. So it was a wound that I needed to heal. I had to stay in the present and know that what I'm doing today is enough. And that's what she is talking about, is when we disregard, when we take our wounded self, when we live off of the fear, when we live off of the anxiety, when we live off of the what ifs or things that happened in the past and we don't try to heal them, we're disregarding our true authentic self. And when you live in a world of fear and anger, anxiety, it almost cuts you off from being able to honor other people's lights because you're too wrapped up within yourself to be able to see and appreciate the light of those around you. And I thought that was really beautiful because it also takes it from the perspective that when someone is selfish, they're not purposely trying to hurt you. They're hurt and wounded within themselves. Very, very much so. And this is true, especially true with narcissists, where we think that they are egotistical and they think of themselves highly. Hidden inside of there is a weak, wounded person. And recognizing that helped give me compassion. It helped me understand a little bit more. It helped me realize that I did not need to take it personally. So now that we've talked about what is self-love and what is selfishness, how can you tell, if you're wanting to know whether it's your actions or those of someone else, how can you tell where you lie? And first and foremost, I say, think about balance. Balance is going to be key in this conversation. Do you feel balanced within your life? Do you feel balanced within the relationship around you? And if the answer is no, that's something that you really should take a look at. All right, so let's dive in. One way of telling whether something is self-love or selfishness is whether it's done with intention. When it's done with intention, with self-love, your love tank is full. You're able to give to others wholeheartedly. There's no resentment. There's no anger. You are happy to do something. If, on the other hand, it's done with selfishness, when your heart is not full, when your love tank is not full, when you, and this is a really key indicator of when you're giving too much of someone, where you don't have healthy boundaries. And so because you don't have healthy boundaries, there's resentment attached to the action that should be a very loving and compassionate action. Anytime you give of yourself to others, it really should be done out of love and not resentment and fear. And so if you find that you're having to give to a specific person over and over again and you're starting to get resentful, that's not saying that you're a selfish person necessarily, but that is saying you should take a look back, a step back, and see, where is that resentment coming from? Is it not being reciprocated towards you? Is it because you need to fill up your own internal self-love tank? There's so many different ways, and only you can answer that question. And it's digging deep. It's going within and listening to what you have to say and trusting yourself. Number 2, the difference between self-love and selfishness is clarity. With self-love, it's honest. We don't have time for everything in life. And there are going to be times where you're going to have to say no to someone, and it's going to be hurtful for them. But when it's done with self-love, when you are clear on your goals, your priorities, and your values, it's going to help guide you to make choices on your day-to-day living that will help you live a fuller and more intentional life. And because you're doing it with the clarity, if someone asks you to do something, you can, with an open heart, say no and maybe help them find another solution. But you're not going to be saying yes and then being resentful later. With selfishness, it's not done with the idea of aligning with your values, your goals, and your priorities. It's done very much with what feels good right now, today. And an example of this is, let's say that your family is a high priority to you, and that's something that you have listed. However, you've decided to work late 4 nights in a row. And maybe that's what needs to be done to be able to get food on the table, to get the jobs done. I don't know. But maybe also at the same time, on that 5th night that you get to go off early, instead of splitting up that time to take time for yourself and for your family, you just take time for yourself. And then the weekend rolls around and you just take time for yourself. There's no balance. You aren't aligning with your priorities of saying, yes, my family is important, but I just choose not to show up. And that's where the selfishness comes in. Self-care is important, but it's important to also balance it with your other values, with your other goals and your other priorities. And that can be said with goals too. Everything in life has to be balanced. If you're focusing too much on a goal, but you're not balancing in self-care, you're going to make yourself sick. Trust me. Been there, done that. There's an article coming on it. And finally, the last thing is balance. Oh my gosh. See, I've been talking about this all along, and that was the way I started it. Balance, my friends, is the key between the difference of self-love and selfishness. There is going to be times in your life where you're going to have to put your needs in front of others. And when you're with young children, it is really hard because more than often than not, you're going to put their needs in front of your own. And that's okay. But it's okay to hire a sitter or have your in-laws come in. Or my gym has childcare, and I cannot tell you the number of times that I put them at childcare so I could just take a shower and blow dry my hair in peace. It was a simple act, but when you have a newborn, the act of taking a shower in peace is it's the best gift you can give a new mother. And it felt selfish, but it wasn't, because I was able to come back calmer and happier and more present with my children. But it was balanced. It wasn't me always running off to do what felt good to me. It was making sure that I spent time to find ways of making those around me that were important feel good as well. So what's next? How do we add more self-love to our life? I encourage you to do a few things. Click the article below if you want to hear more. But there is a great 30-day self-love printable challenge that we're doing for free that you can download and check out. Number 2, healthy boundaries within yourself and with others is a key foundation for self-love. And I really enjoyed reading the book, When to Say Yes and How to Say No to Take Control of Your Life. And it was really the pivotal point for me to learn what healthy boundaries looked like and to realize what I thought was a healthy boundary really was not. It was really codependent. And I am coming to terms with that, and I am working through it. So if you have been in a similar situation where you realize that you were codependent, that you realize you weren't setting healthy boundaries, leave a comment below, because together we grow better. Together we are better, and we live off of each other's informations on how to grow. There's another one, Why Self-Care Isn't Selfish. It's a TED Talk by Jessica Burbacher. Said that wrong. I know I did. And I linked that in the article as well. Highly encourage you to watch it. Those are 3 different ways where you can dig in deeper. Choose a method that sings to you. Some of us are hands-on. Some of us like to watch things. Some of us like to read. It's whatever works. There's no right or wrong answer when it comes to your journey. It's your journey and no one else's. So I encourage you to really find a healthy balance within your life. A healthy balance of taking care of yourself as well as taking care of others. A healthy balance between your goals and your priorities and your health. Just finding where you are balanced so that you can live a happier, healthier, more fulfilling life. Till next week. Bye, friends.